Welcome to a very special photography-themed edition of Iowa Outdoors.
For more than 5 seasons, we've shared with you the images of Iowans whose passion is to capture our outdoor world.
These photographers have worked diligently to bring every detail into focus, from leaves to landscapes. Coming up on this episode of Iowa Outdoors, we explore deep nature with Bob and Linda Scarth, whose marriage has produced more than 50 years of stunning outdoor photos. We climb high into the Luss Hill treetops and see how an area arborist photographs the unique landscape. We fly high above the Mississippi River to produce images few photographers can capture. Finally, we'll spend some quality time with fungi and a man whose passion is shooting the eclectic world of mushrooms. We'll have all that and more.
So sit tight, Iowa Outdoors is about to begin.
Funding for Iowa Outdoors is provided by the Claude P. Small, Catherine Small Cousins, and William Carl Cousins Fund at the Lincoln Way Community Foundation in Clinton County to support nature programming on Iowa Public Television.
Many of Iowa's natural wonders you'll find on IPTV can be found in Iowa Outdoors magazine, the Iowa DNR's premier resource for conservation, education, and recreation activities. Subscription information can be found online at iowadnr.gov.
Iowa Communications Network, ICN's Broadband Matters campaign, advocates for access to high-speed broadband in all corners of Iowa for education, public safety, healthcare, government, and economic development. Information is available at broadbandmatters.com.
Tiny openings around your house can let in a lot of cold air. This includes areas where you see light coming in, especially around windows, doors, and outlets. With the heating season approaching, Alliant Energy encourages you to weatherize now to make your home more energy efficient.
For Bob and Linda Scarth, an outdoor trip almost always revolves around their photography. They've been taking pictures together for as long as they've been married.
For more than 50 years, photography has not only been a shared passion, but a way of life. Bob and Linda Scarth can tell you a lot about the flora and fauna found between the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. That's because they spend a lot of time outdoors photographing the state's natural wonders.
We've been out here a couple of times, I think on New Year's Day, and some of the skunk cabbage has come up through some snow. And we may come out here half a dozen times a year, come out for the skunk cabbage. Then later on for the marsh marigolds, and then also for the red trilliums.
And spring beauty and hepatica and all of the spring flowers. But we photograph year-round. There's usually something interesting.
Linda's father was a photographer, and she developed an interest in photography at an early age. Bob began taking photographs for classes he taught in animal science. Together, they've been making beautiful pictures for over 50 years, or as long as they've been married.
A lot of my early photography when we traveled was landscape. I tended to do more landscapes than anything else, and I was a flower spotter for Linda. And then it turns out now that I do as much close-up work and algae and fungus and flowers as Linda does.
He does more birds than I do. I'm getting back to doing more landscapes again, so I'm seeing the world. I used to say I saw the world through a 100mm macro lens because that's how I framed the world, but I try to expand myself from that.
In 2009, 80 photographs that Linda and Bob had taken over the years were published in a book titled Deep Nature: Photographs from Iowa. The pictures that they selected to include in the book are a close-up look at some of the small wonders found in Iowa's woodlands, wetlands, and prairies.
My favorite image is the hoverfly on the fringe gentian.
And the nice thing about that is the hoverfly wings picked up some of the colors of the French ginseng.
I think my second favorite is probably the little zebra spider. Most spiders don't have very good vision, but jumping spiders do have very good vision. And he saw my lens, and he saw that, and that was the biggest eye he had ever seen. And he sat there and he looked at me like this. And that was fun to do. I enjoyed that.
Linda and Bob together have 4 cameras. All of them are the same, except they've mounted different types of lenses on each camera. It allows them to simply trade cameras instead of having to change lenses in the field. On a shoot, they'll take an assortment of reflectors and umbrellas to direct and diffuse light. And Bob often wears something he refers to as garden knees.
Those garden knees are one of my most useful pieces of equipment because most things look better if you can photograph them at their level, so getting as low as you can. Also, that helps you when you get down low in terms that it may be easier to get a diffuse background. If you're looking straight down or pretty well angled down on things, they normally don't look as nice.
Photography is something Linda and Bob do together. They can cover a lot of ground as a team, but the process still takes time.
When you see something, you just don't take a picture. You make some time, you think about it, you walk around it, you set up. Pictures are made, they're not taken. And we have friends here in town who said, you don't go for a walk with them. You start out, they stop to photograph something, and you come back 2 hours later and they haven't moved 5 feet.
Well, more than 5 feet normally, but
well done.
we go at our own pace.
It's a wonderful thing to be able to share what you love to do with someone you love. And it's rewarding to be able to make a difference in the lives of people and the world you live in by sharing that love with others.
We're each other's best friend, and this is something we can do together, and nature is so special, and we need to show the world how special it is.
Imagine developing an appreciation of the outdoors, not just in your free time, but as your full-time career. That's the life goal of arborist Jeff Grewe.
With a keen eye for proper pruning and nimble climbing, Jeff found success with a chainsaw, but found inspiration through a camera lens, all culminating as the daylight dims along western Iowa's Luss Hills.
The Luss Hills it's just a word that doesn't have any meaning, nothing attached to it. It's a beautiful place that we should know about and that we should make an effort to preserve. And if you don't know about it, it may as well not exist, because it doesn't to you. And that's my effort, to wake people up to there's something there to care about.
For Jeff Grewe, the western rim of Iowa has special meaning. It's a natural landscape he visits to find himself and reconnect with nature. A setting he photographs under a full moon with dwindling light. A backdrop he may never have discovered if it wasn't for his first outdoor passion up above. On the opposite side of the Missouri River, you'll often find Jeff here in the treetops, climbing his way up and slicing his way back down.
And this time, this is a big enough piece. I want it to go this way, so I'm going to notch it and back cut it so that I can have control of the fall. It'll go right where I want it to go.
This is not the Luss Hills, but rather a small river valley enclave known as the Fungi Hills, north of Omaha, Nebraska. It's one of the locations where Jeff has fostered his business, Arbor Aesthetics. a tree pruning, trimming, and removal operation with a careful approach to natural landscape restoration. On an unseasonably cool summer morning, Jeff's team is clearing unwanted trees from a private acreage, opening up a natural landscape from the multi-generational growth of excess vegetation.
A lot of sugar maples, there's some really tall tulip trees. There are some cedars that I'm not familiar with that I've not seen anyplace else around here. So it's, I don't know, it's a real special property. It's sort of like this place and I were meant to come together. It's pretty neat.
Jeff didn't grow up dreaming he would one day trim trees. After high school, he studied everything from computer science to chemistry. But there was something about climbing high above the tree line that caught his attention.
It was this challenge. It was an adventure. Climbing trees is fun. I mean, so you're not bored when you're climbing a tree or swinging around or figuring out how you're going to rig this branch over a house. You're totally involved. It beats sitting at a desk.
Jeff's passion lured the Omaha native to an ecological destination across the Missouri River in Iowa, along the silty ridgeline of lush soil.
2 years ago, you couldn't see anything other than just a wall of cedars here. There wasn't any grass growing.
Here at Folsom Point Preserve, south of Council Bluffs, volunteers spent more than a decade removing invasive cedar trees from the prairie landscape.
The more that you come to this place, the more that you discover the diversity that's here and the beauty that's here, or the beauty that remains. It's nothing like it used to be. The more evident it becomes, this is something which needs to be saved.
The restoration efforts may have been the draw for Jeff, but he brought something more than his chainsaw.
My best photos are taken at night. For some reason, I can see great dim light. And that ability in this place came together and made for a lot of beautiful photographs.
Jeff's work exudes a dreamlike scene, where prairie grasses blur slightly in the breeze and the moon burns bright as the sun amidst the starry sky.
So most of my photos here have been taken at night, and they're usually 15 to 30 seconds, sometimes 3-minute long exposure, and at night, diffuse light produces sort of a magical world that doesn't really exist, except for through the camera.
And he found a unique spot where light pollution, ironically, illuminated the landscape.
It unfortunately has this Fungi industrial plant across the street. It creates this beautiful light pollution at night. I mean, it's this half-mile stretch of really bright lights, and at night, it's just this gorgeous lighting.
Taking his long exposure efforts to the next level, Jeff used his DSLR for time-lapse imagery throughout the Missouri River Valley, a cascade of waste steam rising from a nearby coal plant, and a time-lapse of thunderstorms racing across the Nebraska plains towards western Iowa hillsides. For Jeff, it's easy to say what came first, the tree climbing before the photography. One career, another creative. Both are passions he hopes can illuminate the lush hills for anyone ready to discover the wild places in their own backyard.
Falling in love with trees woke something up inside me. And I began realizing that there was so much more there that, well, it's there, you just don't know it's there. There's a lot here to explore and to discover.
A trip to the northeastern rim of Iowa brings you to the karst topography and vivid beauty of the upper Mississippi Valley.
From cliff sides to the water level itself, the Mississippi is unlike any other region in the Midwest. But for a truly unique perspective, go airborne.
And that's where you'll find Bob Hurt, whose passion for the Mississippi can be found hundreds of feet above our most famous waterway.
I love it all. I mean, it's a matter of savoring, your time up there. Where here, the view changes constantly, and so that's what I love about it.
In North America, few rivers compare to the majesty and grandeur of the Mississippi River. From its bubbling brook of a stream in northern Minnesota to its confluence with the Gulf of Mexico, the mighty Mississippi dominates the landscape of America's midsection. And to capture just a piece of that enormity, an aspiring photographer rose above it all.
How's the breeze back there?
Equipped with a gyro-balancing accessory, Bob Hurt leans gently out the window of his rented airplane, searching for aspects of the river he's seen before, or hopes to capture for the first time.
There's some, I think, pelicans down flying right over the river there. They circle around. You can see them above the lock and dam.
From hundreds of feet above, this aquatic wilderness resembles a maze of backwater passages.
And that's what it's like in the backwater. It's a maze. As a matter of fact, one of my photos is called Mississippi Maze, I believe.
It's an incomprehensible perspective from the water's edge.
You start seeing things that you don't see at all from the ground, or for that matter, the river. Now here it's just the main channel, but when you go a little bit up channel or down, you get into all the backwaters. Well, as a matter of fact, there are backwaters beyond the islands right here. And when you're in a boat, you just see, as you can see right here, you can't really tell. You think that's the end of the river. But it's very intricate, all these channels and islands, and they're weaving in and out, and you can see that from the aerial photography. You just start seeing patterns.
Mark Twain once dubbed the Mississippi the most crooked river in the world, as it meanders for hundreds of miles across the upper Midwest and along the eastern rim of Iowa. The river's beauty drew Bob and his family from Colorado to the karst topography of southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, and northeast Iowa. But that was decades ago, during his first career as an architect.
1995, I was doing a project for the state of Minnesota on growth management, looking at alternatives to sprawl development. And so I started doing aerial photography, looking at growth patterns and how growth was spreading out into the farmland of the natural lands. How many pelicans do you think are in that photo? I said, I don't know, 100, 150.
After discovering a passion for photography later in life, Bob was commissioned by the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation to document the Mississippi's journey past the Hawkeye State. He never looked back, snapping thousands of photos for dozens of clients in the ensuing years. He developed an expertise in aerial photography, specifically along this special river.
I'm just snapping away like crazy. I mean, because there's so much beauty on this river. I mean, it's amazing.
He often journeys high above on a specially designed open-air plane for maximum photographic freedom. Other adventures have him leaning out the cockpit of a single-engine Cessna. A spinning gyroscopic accessory helps steady his hands as his camera lens reaches out for various contours of the river or nearby bluffs.
Taking a lot of shots, going onto the computer and then looking at them and say, aha, and you remember then that you had this spectacular shot. It might have been amongst a burst of 12, but all of a sudden this one really stands out.
After decades of designing structures as an architect, Bob found a second calling documenting the work of Mother Nature in its most powerful and phenomenal form. The organism kingdom fungi has an incredible scope of biodiversity, with estimates ranging near 1.5 million species, including microorganisms like yeasts and molds.
While they're not the most photogenic subjects, we found one man who dives headfirst into this endeavor. Photographer Jim Frink specializes in the most photogenic fungi, and in this realm, there's no shortage of variety.
Jim Frink spends much of his free time here, in the wooded hills of Wildcat Den State Park, nestled along the eastern rim of Iowa. With his trusty assortment of cameras, Jim is looking for something tucked near the miles of trails, something many park visitors or hikers would never even pause to explore, and might even walk past without knowing it was even there.
There are some species that grow by a certain tree, and some like dry ground, some are on a hillside. It just depends.
It could be attached to the side of a dead and decaying tree, or sprouting along the rocky hillsides. A fungi that Jim has documented for years.
Well, I like to think I do, but most likely it's just what I happen to stumble into. Oh, there's quite a variety of shapes and colors. They're red, blue, orange, green, yellow, black, a little bit of everything. Some are tall and thin, some are short and squat, and everything in between.
Mushrooms of every size, shape, structure, color, texture. All of them captivating Jim through his camera lens.
I like you always like to find the bright, colorful ones, but a lot of the real common ones that are brown look great depending upon the light. Sometimes the light really is what makes the picture.
Using a combination of natural light and some occasional LED assistance, Jim has documented hundreds of different fungi just inside Iowa's borders.
Mostly it depends on the person, I think. If you show them pictures, then they like it. I've had a couple of people ask if I'd take them out, which I do. And you just point things out, and I've seen pictures that people take, and a lot of times they're really bad. So if they're with me, I try to show them about the fill-in light. You have to lay on the ground sometimes, or kneel down at least, to get a low, on-ground view of them. I like to photograph on a bright overcast day. It's really good light. If you're in the bright sun, I try to use a shadow of myself or have my wife stand in the way to cast a shadow.
A rich array of varieties, all under the umbrella of fungi, a term many would associate with the household need for a bottle of Clorox. But the mushrooms Jim captures, both in pictures and for the kitchen table, are an essential part of not only his photography, but also outdoor discovery throughout his life.
There's a bloodroot there. This is called a false turkey tail. A little rounded with the hair, kind of small. They call them artist skunk. There's a few of the stinkhorns that are really fancy looking. And so they're all from other countries, but they're starting to pop up here and there.
If you join Jim for a morning hike, you'll soon discover he is filled with knowledge, not only about mushrooms, but the entire outdoor ecosystem's impact on fungi.
There's a beetle living here, these ones that have the holes in it. It's called a horned fungus weevil, and they live inside that. Sometimes they sit on top of the mushroom. If you pick them up, they have a real strong chemical smell. Not real pleasant. This one's really old, so it doesn't show it. But when they're fresh, they're pure white, and you take a scribing tool, you can draw on it, and it turns real dark, and it's permanent.
Jim's interest in mushrooms began nearly 50 years ago, with a childlike fascination and another outdoorsman's photographic inspiration.
I met a man once back in the early 60s, and he had some mushroom pictures, and I thought they were pretty neat, and I had always liked mushrooms, so I just started taking pictures. And that was with film camera.
As a man that's long explored much more than the common morel, Jim warns the casual mushroom hunter against eating too much of anything out in the wild.
Some of the ink caps are pretty good, I like them, but you have a problem if you eat them if you drink anything with alcohol, either a week before or after you eat the mushroom. You don't die from it. Your body kind of turns red and your extremities stay white and your heart races 170, 80 times a minute. A lot of people think they're having a heart attack, and after a couple hours it goes away.
Jim's images of small, intricate detail often resemble something else in the natural world, like coral on a seabed, or translucent and almost alien-like life forms, or a massive sponge on a stick, or macaroni and cheese, except it's shooting out of a decaying stump. Nature's beauty is on display in every image, every shot of fungi. But even through the thousands upon thousands of photographs spanning decades of outdoor adventures, Jim knows there are plenty left to discover.
Oh, I don't think they'll ever see it all. With mushrooms, even if you find a common one, they're really nice groups sometimes, and you know, it's nice to find something like that. A lot of times you see insects you've never seen before. So you just look around and take it as it comes.
That wraps up this photography-themed episode of Iowa Outdoors. We encourage you to get out and explore Iowa's parks like Lake Meyer here in Northeast Iowa. If you're planning any water recreation or outdoor travel, check out our extensive video archive of adventures from across the state at iptv.org/Iowa Outdoors.
Our 6th season of Iowa Outdoors will continue with monthly installments throughout the fall with stories from every corner of our state. We'll leave you now with a second look at some of the professionally captured images of Iowa.
Funding for Iowa Outdoors is provided by the Claude P. Small, Catherine Small Cousins, and William Carl Cousins Fund at the Lincoln Way Community Foundation in Clinton County to support nature programming on Iowa Public Television.
Many of Iowa's natural wonders you'll find on IPTV can be found in Iowa Outdoors magazine, the Iowa DNR's premier resource for conservation, education, and recreation activities. Subscription information can be found online at iowadnr.gov.
Iowa Communications Network, ICN's Broadband Matters campaign, advocates for access to high-speed broadband in all corners of Iowa for education, public safety, healthcare, government, and economic development. Information is available at broadbandmatters.com.
Tiny openings around your house can let in a lot of cold air. This includes areas where you see light coming in, especially around windows, doors, and outlets. With the heating season approaching, Alliant Energy encourages you to weatherize now to make your home more energy efficient.